I'm doing this for Mark Fernandez. He said he missed the intros that we did.
I have so much I need to set straight with the record. Is that how you say it?
Straight with the record?
I need to set the record straight. I am, honestly, I am appalled at Christian Harloff.
I am too. I think for the same reason. Why does he think that's a clip that plays?
It's not.
I know.
Which, I mean, is great because that means it is a good impression.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to how well you do it. And I've always thought you've done a good job. But
I'm actually pretty good at mimicking people's laughs.
From week to week, though, you've done it, and it's, that's a Pamplemousse LaCroix. He popped open. I've got a Coke Zero.
We've been on this LaCroix game for a minute. So if anybody needs to get sponsored, it's our ass.
That's true. I told him he didn't deserve it.
That's right.
I told him he didn't deserve that sponsorship. But
I broke Schmoes.
I broke tradition, and I've got a Coke Zero here. Jesus. They like the intros. I've just decided that Ryan Snelling is never supposed to be creatively satisfied because every idea you think this
for some reason I thought you were going to say that. I just think that Christian and I are never going to be friends.
Well, that too. That's another discussion. We just can't make this 4 minutes. But no, I don't think I'll ever be creatively satisfied because everything I thought this show was going to be like a month ago, totally gone. Totally gone.
Well, the one thing that I was curious about in the Collider carpool was when he was like, "Yeah, and I missed the theme music, but I understand why they need to do it." I want to know why. I want to know what their reasoning is why they think that we need to do it. Like it wasn't like a contractual thing that we couldn't carry over the theme music.
Well, for one, that was just some rinky-dink song I found on a website, and everyone's like, "Oh, I missed the theme song." Okay, go download it. I'll give you the link to it, and you can just put it on your Spotify or whatever you want to do with that song.
If it made you feel better that it's going to be the new theme song of Sight and Sound, will you come listen to us over there? Because we can make that change right now.
I'll probably do it for 1 week just to get the new followers, and then I would go back to that new song. I'm glad we brought it up because this is episode 3 of Afterthoughts, and the past 2 weeks I've forgotten to plug my best friend Eric, who wrote the brand new theme song for us, and I would promote and plug his Instagram, but he just announced that he's going to take a break from creating content. So, no, you can go follow him on Instagram at Eric Mulder Music. I'll put a link in this description. He's a songwriter living in Nashville, Tennessee, one of my buddies. He's in my band. We're going to be releasing music together later this year. And, but yeah, go support him at Eric Mulder Music. I'm glad we got that plug in. Week to week, you've done that impression and you've messed it up. Like, there have been weeks where you messed it up, and we were like, "Oh, it's not as good as it usually is."
Yeah.
He thought it was a clip.
I know. It's not. I'm a big fan of that Rappaport guy.
He also didn't remember that Josh Brolin was Thanos in Guardians of the Galaxy. But there's more corrections to be made on the other side of the theme song.
I didn't know it either, so.
Thank you for checking out Collider Afterthoughts, the show that examines the content and fandom at Collider. I'm Ryan Snelling. Jaye Williams, what's going on?
That's me. J to the A to the Y to the E. It's been a exhausting week. I'm navigating the internet, navigating these movie reviews like a minefield. Today, I decided to play Russian roulette and take in Chris Stuckman's review.
Oh no, Jay!
Last MCU movie I went and saw and checked out his review. He spoiled it for me, so there's that.
I brought this up on Sight and Sound Movies this week. Is there a chance that some of these people, like Variety and Forbes, is there a chance at all that they don't realize that they're spoiling things?
Absolutely. Because, listen, I mean, it doesn't get any more inside baseball, inside the bubble, than this stuff that we're talking about here or this whole online YouTube community, I think. And I don't know, man. I mean, you and I, we're fans of people that are sort of outside this bubble with The Watch and The Ringer and this and that. They just don't operate on the same wavelength. And I listened to your discussion about it, and I think I think that people don't know how to do reviews without getting into the plot. People on YouTube know how to do it because they know they're going to make another video that people are going to watch. But these people have to get their stuff out first. They have to put it on paper or the screen, whatever. And yeah, I think they run some tremendous risks to screw it up for everybody.
I don't agree at all that they shouldn't spoil anything. Where we are in spoiler culture, it's just kind of inexcusable. But the discussion I was having on my show was, if you did what they did with any other movie, it might not be a spoiler. Would it bother you if I told you that the Edge of Tomorrow aliens were a hive mind that gave him the power to do that day-to-day? Like, that happens in the middle of the movie, and it's a very pivotal plot point, but would it really spoil the movie? And I know I was just trying to be fair. I don't agree with that because Marvel is Marvel, Star Wars is Star Wars. These people should know better, but if they truly don't have the same fandom that we do, or like you said, they operate outside of this bubble and that maybe they really genuinely don't know, it's crazy.
I think that this week in particular, especially with Collider, is interesting to look at because it's rare. It's not rare like it never happens. It happens a few times a year where we have these gigantic, monumental, just North Star type of films that everybody's going to be paying attention to, and it's big for this specific industry. So it's interesting to see what every player does, whether it's Collider or Schmoes or Screen Junkies, whoever the case may be. And you know, what I went into all of this with, you know, I'm a little bit more relaxed about spoiler stuff than you are. Obviously, I don't want to be spoiled for this movie because I'm really looking forward to it. But I at least went into getting on Twitter and going on the internet and looking at these reviews, thinking to myself, these are people that I trust. These are people that I respect. I know that they know better. I know that it's possible to slip up.
Right.
But even at that, I was stressed the hell out. Of all the reviews that I watched, whose review in this space, I guess, do you think that I was the most worried about when I was watching it?
Well, did you spoil it already, talking about Stuckman? Or are you going to say Schnepp?
That's more of a joke, but 100% it was that one.
Schnepp?
It was the Heroes review.
You want to know why Collider shouldn't? There's never, ever an excuse for them to spoil something.
What's that?
Because on video, they have the opportunity to edit. So, like, even if Schnepp accidentally slipped in that review, it's their responsibility to look at it, just
of course,
cut it out, and they can still upload it. Like, it's not the end of the world if they accidentally spoil it. It would suck for the cameraman or whoever's running the board in the background, like Cody, if he hadn't seen the movie yet. But I'm not really afraid when Collider does that kind of stuff. Stuckman's a different story. There's nobody guessing and checking Stuckman before he edits and uploads a video, but there are mandates and policies, and I think if anybody let that slip, they should be fired immediately.
That's a little strong, but
get them out of there.
I think spoiler culture in general, or just what is a spoiler, what is not a spoiler, it is subjective, right? I mean, there are certain things that, of course, you just should completely steer away from. But
it's a spoiler for some people to know Chris Evans' contract with Marvel.
Right,
so
exactly.
It just depends, yeah.
Didn't somebody complain to us about spoilers on a show where we talk about Collider?
Yeah.
And I think it was for a movie that came out like a decade ago. Anyways, I don't even remember what it was specifically. But
I can't remember what it was either.
I don't remember. Anyways, I think all that stuff is sort of subjective. And just to go back to your point about sort of the post-production work, that's something when we actually do talk to somebody over there, like a Cody or whatnot, that I want to ask how, for these things that aren't live, that aren't done live, how much post-production stuff goes into it? Or even things like movie talk. Is there an argument to be made that if there is post-production stuff that goes into a Jedi Council or a Heroes, that just because movie talk goes up live, if there is post-production on those other shows, they need to be doing the post-production on movie talk as well, because most people are going to be watching movie talk when it's not live. So maybe none is done at all. Maybe there's no post-production work.
My opinion
Yeah.
is that none is done at all,
Right.
unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
There have been times where they have removed a Schmo down and put it back up later.
Is there even a need to have camera switching, like during Jedi Council? I mean, I understand
yes.
why. I understand. I
Yes.
don't mean should there be camera switching, but should there be somebody switching cameras live in studio? I get the technical reason why, because it's all going through one thing, and the more you can do in the box, the less you have to do afterwards. I'm just curious if
Wait, are you saying that they should do all that in post, or are you saying they should only use one camera?
I'm posing no, not one camera.
Okay.
Same movie talk setup, multiple camera situations, switching things, throwing to graphics and whatnot. But I'm of the belief and the understanding that Adam or Cody or whoever is sitting there like they do in movie talk, switching the whole
Absolutely.
time, as they should. But I guess I'm throwing out the question of, is that the best method, or should they film it with the multiple cameras, go back? Obviously, I'm completely...
That is way less efficient.
100% it is. 100%.
Right.
But could you get a better product?
It wouldn't work with the graphics package either. So you have to...
Right, of course.
So you have to think about the graphics that are in place.
Because it's going through the TriCaster and all that's built
Exactly.
into it. I get that 100%.
It's the graphics and then the efficiency. I mean, I've edited videos where I've had to cut back and forth between cameras, and it's an absolute pain in the ass. It takes way too much time.
But can it be done with the right infrastructure? I mean, could it be done in an efficient manner?
Sure. No. I don't
Absolutely not.
I don't
There's
think
no
there's
way.
any. I don't think there's any version of that is more efficient.
So
The only editing that should be done is if you were to remove a bit of the video because of a spoiler or information that went out too early, etc. But
so when you go and watch something on SportsCenter or not a SportsCenter, that's because a lot of that is live anyways, but that's not necessarily true. If you watch something that is very, very produced that's not live on ESPN, I mean, I'm sure a lot of that, there's a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff that goes into a show like that than goes on with Collider. Is that just down to how effective those individuals are at doing that job? Or is it down to having a bigger infrastructure to be able to turn programming like that out that's put together in a more, technical fashion?
I would say there's less going on behind the scenes. I think there might be one or two people at the table. I've noticed episodes of Jedi Council where one mic is clearly not as loud as the other.
Right.
So I don't think someone, to my knowledge, I can't tell because sometimes it's annoying. I don't think there's actually someone sitting back there running the board or the audio levels the entire time, or at least can hear it, because
I don't know if that's 100% true, or maybe at least not until there's an issue, because we do you remember that one time where there was like a weird high pitch squeal during one movie talk episode, and we were like, what's going on? And you could tell that somebody was like cutting mics on and off to see whose it was to try. Do you remember that?
I don't remember them fixing it within the episode.
They were trying to fix it. Yeah, they were trying to fix it on air to, like, if it was somebody that wasn't talking, they were trying to turn their mics off to see if they could basically shut it off. Because when somebody would go to talk, you could tell their mic would come back on after they'd already started.
Maybe they do it when it's live, but when it's not live, maybe someone just sits there as it starts and then they go away.
Oh yeah,
but there have been times where I've noticed that the audio is clearly not right.
Should they be taking that stuff out and doing things to it in post for the podcast feed?
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, in fact, I would say there's really no excuse not to.
Right.
Especially because there's time. It goes up after the fact that the show's done, and you and I both, just to be completely upfront and honest, #transparency. If you have certain things in place, you can do that very quickly. Like, I'm not saying edit like spaces out and breaths out, but just tightening up the sound itself.
Yes.
Hire us.
We should be running the podcast network, but no, it takes me maybe 5 minutes to produce the quality that we are praised for on this show.
Right.
So, If you're hearing a slight echo, by the way, it's just because my walls are bare. But I've got carpet. That's all I can do. But anyway, that was an interesting combo. I like that.
Where are we in the notes?
We haven't even started.
Yeah.
You mentioned some people that interacted with us earlier. The people that thought we were spoiling movies. I do want to thank everyone for listening to Collider Afterthoughts. Again, this is still a new show. It's the old show, but it's still a new show, and that I'm still feeling vulnerable because we do have a new audience. So I'm hoping that everybody's on board with what Jay and I hope you get the show, if you will. And one of those people one of those people that reached out to us last week was Frank. And he backed us up on the coconut.
What's his last name? How do you say his last name?
Like Leguizamo, right?
Lamborghano.
What's great about Frank, and I'm a big fan of Frank now. What's great about Frank?
You've literally had 2 interactions, and now I'm a big fan.
Because he listened 2 weeks in a row.
Is that all it takes?
I genuinely don't know what he does there other than he films stuff. I guess he's the camera guy.
I remember during the town hall, Fernandez was heaping praise on him about something specifically. Was he the one that was primarily behind the top 50? I can't remember.
No, I think that's Joey.
I think you're right. That's who I thought it was.
But Frank,
somebody's going to be like, what the hell?
Well, Frank's also a camera guy because he was, I know he films he did film a lot of Perry's stuff.
Yeah.
When she would go out and film. He did that secret thing at Lucasfilm with Cobster. He totally deserved to go to that thing, by the way. Frank, he has, I don't know exactly what he does or his position, but he doesn't, to me, in my opinion, have a reason to listen to us 2 weeks in a row. And that guy did, and I love him for it. You know why? Because
he's already done more than most people in the studio.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Joe, if you're listening, Frank, you have no reason to listen to the show. You do it anyway, and that's more than a lot of people in that building can say. So I love the shit out of you, and I would love to support anything and everything you do in the future.
What if we just shot you a link to his Patreon page?
Sorry, Wangers. Your money's going to Frank. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be a patron to ours. You never know.
I do need to preface this show. We are recording Wednesday evening. So all of the Thursday content we have not seen. Of course, we haven't seen the Friday content. We're doing this today because we're both available, and I'm seeing Infinity War tomorrow night. But we happen to get together because we're doing our Legion recap.
And I need to do laundry.
Oh, that's true. I was doing laundry today.
Okay.
So there's that, but we're gonna talk about everything that we can. There's still always a lot of goodness. We talked a little bit about we addressed Harloff and Fernandez in the car on the way to Infinity War.
Collider pool.
Yeah.
Car lighter.
I think of a lot of when you say collider pool, I think of a lot of other things before of like a carpool show though. Like
car lighter.
It felt like a Deadpool thing at first. It was nothing told me that it was a carpool show.
Carpool lighter. Everybody, if you can name the robot on Jedi Council, you can surely name this new show. Go for
it. You can't name the robot on Jedi Council.
Well,
according to the name that actually exists.
You know,
for
Christian gives you shit for not liking him talking about Schmodown on Carpool, and he won't let it go. I feel like he's going to, every time that robot's referenced, he's going to be like, and this is our new robot, screw off Snelling.
I love it. He said
just want the attention.
Well, yeah. He said Snelling was a great nickname for his shitty squirrel.
I know.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I hope he genuinely calls that squirrel Snelling, and because then his wife and his daughters will know who I am, and I could be a godfather. Do
you have to be like a verb someday? Like, you're acting kind of Snellish right now.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it. I like the show, but Christian brought up that Fernandez. I don't know if he's camera shy, but he doesn't like to be on camera.
Did Fernandez make it awkward for Christian in the car? I think it threw him off a little bit.
Fernandez, speaking of squirrels, he was there to just distract Christian from everything.
I like it.
They were just, their conversations were just being juggled back and forth. I mean, Christian probably had an idea what he was talking about. Fernandez is like, Snelling, or afterthoughts. And Christian would have to leave.
He was really self-conscious about how many people watch. Nobody's watching this. Turn it up.
Why did Christian say he was never going to go to Instagram? Or what was his comment? He said something like he didn't care about ever going to Instagram. Like, dude, it is going down on Instagram.
Yeah. I feel like he maybe is more comfortable on Facebook. I remember there was a carpool where he tried to do it on Twitter one time, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not about this life." Yeah, I get that, I get it, but it just takes a little practice on the Instagrams.
It's going down on Instagram.
It's going down the DMs,
according to Gary Vaynerchuk. So
that's right.
So yeah, they let's talk about that a little bit because
Gary Vaynerchuk.
No.
Oh, okay.
Do you think Mark Fernandez
crushing it?
Do you think Mark Fernandez is friends with Gary V?
I don't know. I don't know if Mark had or has a hand in Hot Ones at all, but I mean, Gary V was on Hot Ones.
Do you think Fernandez is friends with Mike Shinoda?
100%. Wait, do I think Mark Fernandez or Gary V?
Do you think Fernandez is
100%.
friends with Mike Shinoda?
100%. He has pictures of A$AP Rocky and him.
Can I tell Fernandez that Mike Shinoda is my musical icon?
You can't. No, you can't abuse your abilities for your own gain.
People, we got a tweet this week, and I'm just going to mention it to basically tell you we're not going to address it. It's the drama behind Frosty in the press junket. He tweeted out some stuff. I was asked on Twitter if I was going to talk about it. No, not really. One, because it's sort of over and done with, and two, I literally know nothing about it. Like, I don't even know who the actor is. I literally have what you have to go off of that, and that was 2 tweets. He gave us the information, deleted it, and then apologized. And the fact that was days ago, there's just no reason.
Over and done with. Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll say about it is, one, it's a completely human thing to do, a completely human reaction to do something like that, especially if you feel wronged or whatnot, to speak out about it. I get it, but I also applaud his professionalism and sort of coming to terms with not only the fact that he represents probably more than just how he felt right then and there. So I respect the fact that he came forward and took it down and said what he needed to say. I understand both sides of it, and hopefully there's nobody out there that's like, well, you should out this person. It's like, man, come on. There's bigger things to deal with in the world other than what fucking actor wronged Frosty. Like, that sucks. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's, whoever that was, guy or girl, whatever to them, but it's not going to make you lose any sleep if you don't know who it is.
I was thinking about Infinity War, and I was like, if I had the choice not to know, I would probably choose not to know.
Yeah.
Because I don't want that tainted, and that was sort of his point, too. It did make me think about, and I'm glad he put up another interview with the Russo brothers. Did you watch both videos?
I did.
So the video at the actual press junket, I was kind of down on it because.
What do you mean?
You and I have talked about.
You talking about the big panel?
No.
Okay.
Just him and the Russos at the press junket.
How do you feel?
Because he wasn't asking very interesting questions.
Let's just take the temperature on videos like this in general. So I feel like this is the closest we get as fans in the movie space to watching those boring, silly sports interviews where they say things like, well, we practiced really hard, we gave it our best. Personally, I know that's what that's going to be going into it, but I always find myself still watching them because it's a part of that hype, that lead up. If it's outside of what I call the cycle of hype, like the week of Infinity War, then I'm probably not going to watch it as much. But this week, I couldn't get enough Infinity War content to feed that hype.
I think what what fascinates fandom in general, whether it's sports, like press conferences or press junkets, things like that. It's the promise that you'll get a little bit of something.
Like, people don't want to be spoiled, but they want some information.
That we want information, and we will watch a 10-minute, they're never 10 minutes, 3 to 4 minute press junket video, hoping that there's one inkling of information that can't be found anywhere else, whether it's the specific run time of Avengers 4 or what have you. That's sort of the fascination. That, and maybe just the fascination of celebrity. Maybe they do something funny that goes viral, like Sad Affleck was a great press junket moment, things like that. But the problem, though, and we'll talk, I mean, we can use this to segue if you want as well, but the Infinity War, because of the context, because of the privacy, because of the security involved, it's been really frustrating.
Yeah.
But like not in a way that's making me angry. It's just kind of like, I just want to know so badly everything there is to know about this movie.
Yeah.
And no one can say anything.
Well, I think I will challenge, or not challenge, I'll go the other way on the questions that Frosty was asking in his Russo brothers interview. One that I found interesting, and something that me personally that I find, or that I'm looking for when I go into it, is just things outside of, who was the hardest to deal with on set? Who laughed at the most takes? I don't care as much about stuff like that. Like when they started getting into technical talk about shooting on IMAX cameras and the availability and the fact that they shoot a lot of handheld stuff, but using an IMAX camera, how did that go? I found that to be fascinating.
Was that during the press junket or was that in the hotel room?
I think that might have been the hotel room, but I'm using it as an example of the types of conversations in those press junkets that I find enjoyable. And I feel like, I could be wrong, but it's completely speculation, but I feel like that's more enjoyable for the people who are working on the movie, to talk about stuff like that. Anything plot related, anything like that is just sort of, it's like basic low hanging fruit type of questions.
I did appreciate the second video in the hotel room a lot more, but the reason why the press junket video disappointed me is because you and I value Frosty and what he brings to the table in those sort of discussions, because I know that he tries to do something different.
Absolutely.
And I think the problem that I had, though, was that we already know, especially him, we already know they can say so little. So I thought it was sort of a waste of time to purposefully ask questions they can't answer purely as jokes, because that was like half the video in that press junket video.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that was disappointing and maybe frustrates those guys, or maybe I don't know, maybe they're all having fun. And
I'm sure when you're doing whatever 30 to 50 of those,
I know,
and everyone has that joke question, it's like,
I think
you and I would not deal well with that. If somebody were to ask me something like that, my response, it's the same thing I have when they ask my opinion on a movie and I'm like, I have a podcast about that. I would probably be like, I literally can't talk to you about this right now. So why are you wasting my time? I would be the guy that Frosty tweeted about to be like, he was such an asshole. It's like, dude, I can't say anything.
Right.
There's somebody literally in the corner with the stopwatch about to tell you to take a hike. Let's go.
And it happened to, I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked Robert Downey Jr. during the press conference, do you die or are you alive in Avengers 4? And it's like, he can't answer.
I do love a good actor who gets pissy in a video. I'm not gonna lie, that one with Robert Downey Jr. getting mad at that actor, or at the interviewer the one time when
they kept asking about his dad.
Oh my god,
it's like the Indian or Asian interviewer?
I don't love it because that guy was kind of being a douche.
I don't love it because it probably upset RDJ.
Absolutely, but
that guy, that interviewer, I can't remember who he works for right now. He's a British guy, but he's had several of those. I think he had something like that with Tarantino as well. And Tarantino did not fucking put up with it either. That happens quite a bit. Well, I'm thankful that Frosty is not like that. That's not how I imagine this whole thing. Like a
button pusher. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Frosty likes to have fun.
You would be that guy.
It depends.
You would be a button pusher. It's already frustrating me because I'd be the one to have to deal with it.
It's true.
You got to deal with this guy. You got to fix him. It's fine.
Let's I do have some other things I want to talk about before we get into like movie talk and heroes and all that stuff. But let's go on and talk about the Infinity War coverage across the board, because not only did Frosty put up a lot of great content for us, including that press conference. By the way, he edited that down like it's 1/3 of the full video. So right. I haven't watched the full one, but I'm hoping there was purpose to that to streamline that a little bit.
I mean, honestly, it's a smart play just for algorithm wise of YouTube. I think more people are inclined to watch a shorter truncated video and catch the highlights.
I don't know about this one though.
But hear me out. I think it's good to hit play on that, catch the vibe of it, get that play, get that click, whatever, and then hopefully they do upload the full thing. Like for me, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I would like to see the full thing. I got all I needed out of this. If all of a sudden Collider after the movie comes out, if they upload this video and it's full capacity, I might go back and watch it then.
What was great about that video though is how I think it was accidentally edited for comedic value, because having those cuts to Jeff Goldblum like back to back to back like that, it was cracking me up just to get that constant Goldblum, because he was just being himself, and so it was accidentally hilarious to me that it was done that way. But
since we're on the Frosty train right now, discussing things involved with Frosty,
what is it, Snowpiercer?
The movie's overrated. Anyways,
bullshit.
It is. It's just some people running through a train.
Snowpiercer's badass. Some people running through a train.
We are well into this Collider, whatever it is. Is it 2.0 that they called it?
3.0, Jay.
We're well into this now. Did you think that maybe you'd see more new content from the people in the .com up to this point? I think we obviously have the Collider.com podcast, and we've seen some people migrate over to be on Collider Video proper. But did you think that maybe you would see some more stuff from them so far?
Yes, I did. And I didn't even put this together. I think it was maybe earlier today where I realized Adam Chitwood, I think he's like the number 2 at the .com, number 3 host of the .com podcast. I don't even think he's on location. I think he works remotely in the Midwest.
Right.
And that's not something that I considered.
Yeah.
That some .com people work remotely. I think the .com podcast is done through Skype.
We work remotely.
That's true. But I'm available.
Are you on Tinder?
Not right now.
Okay.
Point being, I didn't realize that the staff wasn't even in Burbank. But so far it's only just been Frosty contributing with his own video. Nothing new from Frosty other than the amount.
Does he have an office in the studio?
I don't know. No, in the studio? I don't think he works there.
He doesn't need to.
No.
Right?
Not necessarily. Unless he was going to contribute more to video. Maybe they build an office for him. But maybe he works in that reptile room that Christian works out of. But I don't think he's in that building. But we've seen Haley Fouch come over and do content. And that's just pretty much been the extent of it. I was promised from Frosty himself that there would be more. Hopefully that's all in the works. But so far,
in due time, I'm sure. I just was curious whether or not you had thought that there might have been some more on this initial rollout. But they do have. It's hard for me to say they do have a thing now. They do have a thing, the .com podcast, but it's been a thing. It's just more. Everything's more focused, more funneled in, I think, down to one area. You don't have to venture off too far to get this other content.
Right. I'm waiting for you to bring up your main point about Infinity War content.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You had all the time in the world to make that segue.
Well, I've just been curious this entire week. We talked a little bit the last, I think, 2 episodes or so far since we've launched Afterthoughts, sort of waiting to see what the build-up content was going to be we got it last week was sort of when the ball started moving in full force as one giant moving Snowpiercer train.
Hell yes.
Is nothing. And then this week in particular was fascinating because it was sort of split between more build up, like the peak hype, and then them seeing the film and then us taking that in. So there's these different phases of watching Collider on the lead up to this film. We're all waiting, pins and needles. And I'm curious to get your impression of what do you think is the most beneficial for Collider as a YouTube channel, I guess, or even the podcast feed? Is it the build-up hype? And I'm sort of putting it all within the week before, week of, and week after. Is it the hype leading up to it? Is it the week of when they see the movie, they can give their reactions, they can give their reviews? Or is it the fallout when they can actually discuss these things? Because I think they're three very different, tonally, very different conversations, very different programming that they can develop. But I'm curious to know whether or not you think one is more beneficial to the channel than the other.
It's not the buildup.
You don't think it's a buildup?
It's not the buildup. I think it is more so the week of and the week after. Because people...
Well, and like I just said, the week of is sort of split between those two, right? So on Monday and like half of Tuesday, we're still in lead up
like I'm looking at their Social Blade right now. So on Tuesday, their subscribers doubled on average, and their video view count doubled on average. And yeah, if the video count doubled on average, you could say, well, it's probably because it's just the volume of videos that they're putting up to cover Infinity War. But no, it's also translating through subscribers. The subscribers have doubled as well.
Well, and that's okay to throw that out there while they're putting out more stuff, but you can't put out more stuff unless you have a film like this tentpole movie to support what you're putting out. You could just as easily put out double the amount of content that nobody watches. Right. So
yeah,
they're putting out their standard programming, but they're also putting out press junket videos, which are going to get pops. They're also putting out news stories based on press junket things that happen outside of Collider's interviews, and whatever else may come of that, additional reviews or whatever it's going to be. Because we had two, and we'll talk about this when you get into more of the week of stuff, but. We had 2 reviews from Collider so far, right?
Yes.
We had now, later, or never, and then we had the Heroes review.
What does it say to you that? Sorry, I lost track of the video. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, I'll just continue answering your question, but I think it's mainly about when you talk about the hype up. I mean, you could be talking about months at a time. You could be talking about from the first trailer to the release of the movie, which could be months at a time, if you want to include that in the build-up.
I'm sort of putting it in the, like I said, the sweet spot of week before, week of, week after.
It's just there's nothing... The speculation of it becomes redundant because you do have your movie talk and your heroes, but nobody's really getting anywhere. But,
and everybody's going to be different, right? I know the second I come into that movie theater.
Yes.
I did this with The Last Jedi.
Yes.
The second I came out of the movie theater, went home, I took in I swear to God, probably 4 to 5 spoiler-filled reviews just to be a part of that conversation, right? I definitely think fans love the water cooler talk. That's why we subscribe to these channels. And there is no better time than when you get out of that movie theater to have those debates and discussions.
When we left Last Jedi and went to IHOP, which was down the road, I had already started their review and listened to it on the way to IHOP.
Right.
I mean, I did want to know immediately.
That was a crazy time because there were for all the channels that we follow, there had to have been at least close to 10 different videos to choose from.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. I think it's the week of, because I took in all of the videos that have been out so far. The first place that I'm going to go when I leave the video is their review after I make my own. And I think people want takes.
Yeah.
The speculation can become redundant, and it's in different avenues, like a movie talking heroes, sort of going back to my argument that people will pick and choose if it's just some news story of a casting or whatever. But It really, really matters in the meat of it. The week of, when it's the only place that you can get reactions, and then when you've seen the film yourself and you want to take in all the content after.
So let me throw this out there to you, to sort of kind of mutate this conversation. We're both in agreement then that post being at the theater is the most palpable time for people to really hit that content. I think they do this, but my question is, should the content be focused on that period? I think they're aware of it, because I remember when The Last Jedi came out, all those spoiler-filled reviews were uploaded like that Thursday, like that day. I think like right when the first screenings on the East Coast hit.
Yeah, I think they go up Thursday at midnight,
right.
like Friday at midnight.
But should that content pool be filled throughout the entire weekend? Should they be constantly putting out things throughout the entire weekend to cover that pop? Because it's never going to be as big in a more concentrated area or time than the weekend that the film comes out.
It might not have been specifically over the entire weekend, but I think we saw them started to pick things up during the Black Panther coverage.
Right.
It felt like every day they put out a Black Panther video that raised a new question, what it meant, if this was the best villain versus how does Black Panther compare to the rest of the MCU? What does Black Panther mean for Infinity War? They sort of just did a video every day,
right,
capitalizing on the release of Black Panther. So I don't remember if it was specifically that weekend, but I also don't know if it has to be necessarily.
Yeah.
The spoiler review will be there whether you see it on Thursday night or Saturday night. Come Monday, when a good amount of people have seen it, they're putting out those videos. So I think that's fine.
I'm just trying to relate it to anything that I've created content around and how I've tried to structure it, because I think about it from a fan's perspective. Like, what would I want personally? And the only thing I can even think of is when I was covering the Under Oath album that just came out. It was like, you do that preview, your expectations, you do your review of it, but then you start going into weird territory. What does this mean? What does this mean for the MCU? What does this mean for fans? What does this mean for competitors of, what does this mean for DC? Like, anything that you think a fan could think of, they should be making videos on to cover it potentially. Because
sure.
Again, that goes into the next week, right? That goes into movie talk when everybody's been able to, because I think that's when it starts to drop off. The week after, do you think there is a hangover from this stuff? Do you think there's like this weird just dousing of movie serotonin, like blockbuster serotonin, and a come down off of it to where people are like, man, that was a crazy ride, I need a break?
Not that I've ever experienced.
Okay.
No.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure
maybe
there's people out there where they're just because this is right now, and again, for a movie like Star Wars, this is the most you will ever get beat over the head with content about one specific thing. So I could easily see where people would be like, this was a wild ride, I need to come down for a little bit.
I don't remember exactly how they did the Black Panther stuff, but if each person in that studio like wrote down a question or a concern that they had with the movie, they could host said video.
Right.
'Cause you could have like 5 to 10 videos alone on this movie.
That was kind of how it was for The Last Jedi. It seemed like I'd never seen this before from Collider, and I could be wrong. I might be remembering it wrong. It felt like there were like 3 or 4 different reviews on Collider alone. They had like the Jedi Council one, they had like the Perry and somebody else review. I feel like somebody else did another review.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm sure that will still happen because we have Collider Heroes and Movie Talk.
Right.
But now they are introducing Review Talk.
Right.
And I got some clarification on Review Talk. Last week I said that it was going to be one release weekly. Apparently, Review Talk is an actual show, and they're going to review the 2 to 3 movies that come out that weekend. So it's a full-blown show, not just a review video. That's sort of, I'm pretty sure that's how Roka explained it, because I'm pretty sure I just word for word said what Roka said, so maybe he misunderstood, but so that's what it is. But not to be mistaken, this week it's only pretty much about Infinity War, so it's only going to be one movie. But anyway, we're going to have review talk. We've already got Now, Later, or Never. I think it's definitely important that there are different people on all of these shows. So I don't...
And different flavors, right? And of course, if I'm assuming question here, how long do you expect review talk to be? People will have probably watched it already by the time they hear this.
30 to 40 minutes.
See, I think the show should be an hour. Not only do I think it should be an hour, I think it should go on a podcast feed somewhere, without a doubt, whether it's on Factory or whatever. And I think it should be a new type of show that they do going forward. I mean, obviously, it is going to be something
be like a Siskel and Ebert or Ebert
they do
or
going
type
forward.
thing.
But I want it to feel different to movie talk too, right? Because we do get there's like a grace period too where on movie talk they'll just sort of openly talk about movies. They'll throw up the spoiler alert or whatever, and they'll give these quick takes. I want it to feel significantly different than movie talk. We've seen stuff like this in the past. The only thing I can think of really that I can cast my mind to are the TV recaps they've done in the past, where they literally sit around and they have a discussion about something, or even like the Heroes review that we just watched. That's my question. How is this going to be any different than the Heroes review that we just got, other than just having different faces?
My two concerns, because I do think it's important to have multiple voices across redundant videos, if you will. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think it's important to have different people on at different times. To answer your concern, if your review talk is going to be a thing and it's going to be a show, it needs to have its own host to feel different than movie talk. Yeah. I don't think it should be Ellis. I don't think it should be Christian, and I don't think it should be Schnepp.
There is something very special, and I think you're exactly right. And I'd love to hear from other people what they think about this. But I think there is something special about the fact that those core shows have their own hosts. Christian hosts Jedi Council, Mark hosts Movie Talk, Schnepp hosts Heroes.
We talked about it last week. The way Schnepp handles Heroes, it feels totally different than how Christian handles Jedi Council, and it's a good thing.
I guess it is official. I guess we need more clarification that Perry is the specific host of Mailbag. I mean, it seems it's been that way for a minute.
Yeah. It's either Perry or Riley or Perry and Dennis. I think Roca might do it sometimes.
Right.
But I just don't know who else it would be, because Perry and Roca are already tied up with Now or Never, and I just crossed out Schnepp, Christian, and Ellis. Do they bring in a freelance? Do they?
I mean, you know who would be well, here's what I want from the show.
Roxy.
I would love, whoever the host is going to be can be the host. Those other chairs need to be rotating panels of people. This is the other.
They said it would.
Okay, this is the best show to bring in somebody like a Scott Mantz on.
I was just gonna say how much to buy Scott Mantz out of his Access Hollywood contract.
Yeah.
That would be sick.
Just to throw some other additional flavor in there.
God, it'd be sick.
They need a chair for, are you ready for this? Brett Sheridan on every episode. All right, listen. If you're going to have, and obviously
it'll never happen.
Obviously, you know what? It should. This is do you think Mark Fernandez knows who Brett Sheridan is?
He doesn't know who I am. So if he doesn't know who I am.
Listen. Collider, like serious face, suit and tie Collider, needs a show. I know that we're going to get Collider Live or whatever it's going to be, and we're going to get this wild and wacky version of Collider. We need one show where we just throw in, maybe not a Finstock, he could offend some people, but for sure some Brett Sheridan just to give it some flavor.
Rappaport. All right, this fucking movie.
Rappaport. I'm pitching a new show right now, and if you take it, you need to cut me a check for like $200. Just bring in Rappaport. If Rappaport is ever in the building, just have him record like these really quick takes about all movies, and just put that video up.
that sounds like something that I would come up with.
Yeah.
So I love that idea.
Even if you split them up into 1 minute Instagram things, like, what's up with these fucking Infinity Stones? Watching a movie about some fucking Barney motherfucker walking around throwing some rocks?
They're putting some fucking Skittles on a glove.
Spider-Man? He can stick to things? That's your new show. Run with it.
I think Roxy should host, but I did.
Roxy's co-hosting the live thing.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Make her a part of Collider.
Yeah.
You know who else needs to be a part of Collider?
You.
She's already busy. Danny Fernandez.
Okay.
You need to get Danny Fernandez on Heroes more. That's all I'm saying. Where were we? Review talk. There's nobody else left. Get Cody to host it.
You could do that. Get Beardo on the show.
By the way, you brought up interviewing Cody.
Yeah. He won't get back to you now?
Cody was supposed to be on this week.
Yeah. Are we tattletaling on him? Are we telling his bosses?
I don't know whose fault it is. Actually, yeah, it is Cody because he didn't get back to me.
Actually was completely unaware of this.
Cody messaged me and said, "Hey, I can't do it this week, but I heard you wanted to do afterthoughts. Can we do it next week?" I said, "Yeah, but let's record a segment outside of you and I sitting here." And he just never responded. That was a week ago.
Cobster was supposed to come on Sight and Sound like 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah. RB3 just did the Legion recap 2 weeks ago.
He did.
So RB3 is the most
got
punctual.
Got Ace on the books for in the future to talk about Kanye and Drake. There's your Sight and Sound plug in the middle of the show.
Real quick podcast network talk. One-on-one with Hayden Zito, excuse me, the S, was damn good. I was really excited to. It's so funny. I had just rewatched Edge of 17, and it was like the next day that he announced that was the guest. So it was super cool that he was friends with Wendy, and Wendy got him to come on because I think that's something. And this will come up when we talk about the Kevin Pollak show. Sometimes I wonder why Ellis and Christian don't utilize their connections more. I feel like they know a lot more people, and like a Hayden. If Wendy can get in a Hayden Zito, then why can't Christian and Ellis bring in someone big?
Well, to be fair, I mean, during the live show days, they did that plenty, right? Like a lot of people. I mean,
I know exactly.
Yeah,
so I'd be curious. I'd be curious if they're gonna pick that habit back up when Collider Live comes up. It depends on the layout of that show, but I just feel like they have the connections to be able to maybe do that a little bit more. I don't know.
Ellis is the interesting one because I mean, Harloff and Ellis is Harloff and Ellis, and other than that, he does movie talk, right? So,
right.
I mean, I think it's going to be really tough for him to be like, "Hey, my friends, do you want to come in at 7 a.m. to talk about movies?" It's like that might be a little much. Yeah, I mean. I'm excited for Sinead next week.
Yeah.
Or I guess technically it's this week on one-on-one.
Me too.
I like Christian, his plug, maybe not necessarily his plug, his little preview. He talked about it being a really honest interview. I would like to see some like random trailers thrown out there. Like, for instance, Christian, not Christian, but Collider threw on like a little commercial about the podcast feed at the beginning of our podcast last week. Fine with that. Don't care. That's great. I would love to see commercials for other podcasts. Like throw in a Sinead commercial at the beginning of some of these other podcasts to help cross promote. I think it'd be good, especially if they're pre-recorded. Why not?
I agree. And I think they need to.
You can even throw a commercial for us at the beginning of other things.
They haven't said a word about afterthoughts this week. Not a one. They have it. Why are you smirking like that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think in general the promotion for the podcast network has been slacking, and I think
it's been good, but let me take that back. It's been fine because it feels like it's a part of the routine, but I don't know, especially for some of these standalone things, like whenever the rundown does come over, like they need to make a point to really focus on the rundown, and not focus on the rundown, but definitely plug the rundown. Christian's very good at that. Even the .com stuff, like, I don't know. Like, I've always envisioned there being a time where if there was a new show that Collider was going to announce, for our show specifically, I think the floor is open for that new person to come on and pitch their concept to the listeners, to be like,
yeah,
basically like a late night talk show does with people who are going around to promote movies. Come on to Afterthoughts and do that. Like, maybe Collider Live will have something like that to where they can come on and promote their show to the
and maybe
Collider
they'll do
listeners.
breaks, and they can do that as like in the way that the Schmoes Live show was set up. They did like Copsters breaks or whatever that might happen.
I think it comes down to the fact that there are a lot of people in that building that put together these shows. And back to what I said last week, I think there are people there that aren't really used to having Collider be this sprawling. I think Christian and Mark both are used to it, and they do a decent job at it, or really, I think they do a good job at it. I think they're still getting used to it. There will be a sweet spot when it comes to this cross promotion thing.
This is why we should run the podcast.
Absolutely. I think more than anything, I hope people don't think that this is like self-serving to us. I mean, obviously it would benefit us, but more than anything, with this being such a different time for Collider, especially, there's still discussions about like what is the best way to listen, how, and that's fine.
Right.
I get that. It's new, so I think it would be in the channels, the network, whatever's best interest to continue to help people out with people being, I promise you, I don't know what they think about it, but I promise you, we've got our ear to the ground. There are people out there that are stressed out about how much content they have.
Right.
So to help them in the right direction would be
I was gonna say, and I think the podcast network, it only helps. If I don't have time to get a video, maybe it's just because I'm the host of Afterthoughts, but if I don't have time to get in one of their videos because I'm at work, I can do the podcast that way.
Right.
It's been very beneficial. It's like I said, I made the point. It's just funny how much more I've been utilizing it, even though it was always there, but in its own feed.
I expected, I know this was on the rundown. I hope we weren't coming up on it a little bit later, but when Heroes put out their review for the Infinity War film, I fully expected it to be on their podcast network or their podcast feed as well. It's a longer form episode. There's no reason for it not to be. It seems like supplemental content to be on there. I haven't seen it. I don't know if they plan on putting it up, but if they're going to do a spoiler discussion, 100% it needs to go up there.
Yes.
There's no reason for something like that not to be on the podcast feed. They've got to start thinking about things in that manner.
I mean, I brought it up last week. I don't know if everybody's thinking about the podcast network. It's not firing on all cylinders, it doesn't seem like. So you're right about that. We're recording on Wednesday night.
When you say not firing on all cylinders, you mean specifically just
there are episodes that lag.
The infrastructure, yeah.
I noticed that some of the episode descriptions, for example, and I don't know who does them, but it's just a block of text. So they're extremely hard to read because you need to have line breaks to create links and to catch people's eyes and things like that. So I had to tell Christian,
it can't be treated as an afterthought.
Yeah.
It can't be just something that you just poop out.
Can you tell whoever's, and it might be multiple people, I don't know. I think Thad puts our show up, but it's like, can you teach this person how to do line breaks to make the description make sense as opposed to just being one giant orgy of text? And so I had to have that conversation. And one thing that you know I'm really, really anal. Yes.
Anal?
Orgy and anal.
I already said poop.
About titling. And you and I have had discussions on how we like title episodes. So you know it has been driving me nuts how all of these shows are
very
not
frustrating for me just to...
Really?
No.
Oh.
I'm
frustrating to you.
Yeah,
yes. That makes sense.
OCD about it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But I do concede the notion that it is for the best ultimately. As long, and we obviously communicate well enough to come to an agreement on the best way to do it, but ultimately having a uniform sort of idea about how something works is just for the betterment of the experience and for the content.
Like if I went to One-on-One's podcast feed right now, there are 2 copies of the Clancy Brown episode.
Yeah.
And so there's 4 total. All 4 titles are written completely different from the other. So that drives me crazy. and a lot of them are redundant, and I don't know. It just it drives me crazy.
Yeah, we talk a lot when we're dealing with our own content that stuff like that is extremely important, because when you're presenting something to your audience, the last thing they should think about is how to do this, how to do that. What is this? What is that? The only thing your audience should be focusing about is the content, whatever it is that you're saying.
Exactly.
So your user experience is extremely, extremely important. And just completely getting all of that stuff right is very, very valuable for the user. We were talking about this off air, but their thumbnails, for instance, for the most part, I would say 99% of the time are extremely, extremely consistent. They have templates built where the news icon falls in the same spot every time they do a thumbnail.
Right.
That's for uniformity. Your titles, your descriptions, you can think this is nitpicky all you want, but I promise you, those things are just as important as how something looks, and how the lower third on Movie Talk is the same every single time you watch it. All that stuff is very important.
Yes. So the reason why that matters to me.
Wait, before we go any further.
What?
I had a mouthful of vape.
You don't vape this often in life.
Yes,
I don't know.
do.
You have just been vaping
Yes, I
this
do.
entire
You know what?
podcast. No, you don't.
It's my life.
It is your life. I just think you're showing off. It's like
Showing off to who? To you?
To the 30,000 listeners we have.
How dare you?
This reminds me of when
We're not on video.
This reminds me of when in my daily life I never needed to hawk a loogie and spit.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, I played baseball.
Mm.
And anytime I was playing baseball, I felt like I had to spit all the time. And my mom said to me, "Why are you spitting, but only when you play baseball?" I guess it was just a baseball thing.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call shinfo. Anyways, let's talk about, what were we just talking about? You completely threw me off. How dare you? What were we just
threw
talking
me
about?
off because I had a point to make, and then you go, wait a minute, before you talk about that.
This was going to be such a good point, too.
I was talking,
Oh, yeah.
we were talking about
Okay.
thumbnails and titling
Well,
consistency.
let me play devil's advocate and go on the other side to argue against you.
Please.
For all of this stuff.
Do I make my point first, or?
No, I'm just going to tell you, so what? I've already made the point of why I think it's a big deal. But what if somebody were to come to you and tell you, we're not going to do all that stuff. It's just pointless. It's not a big deal to do any of that. Is that down to it not being a big deal, one, or two, is it down to being lazy? Is it down to not doing it because you don't want to take the time to structure all that stuff? Getting the back end things and packaging things up very nicely to present to people, it does take time. And it can be stressful to get all of those things right. Somebody not doing that after being made aware that it is an issue, is that a problem with being...
So when I'm annoyed at the titling, it doesn't keep me from listening to their content.
Yeah.
But I'm also the host of the show. So it's like...
where we do look at things under a microscope.
Right. But that's under a microscope because I realize that when I read The Ringer or go to ESPN or I'm looking at the quote-unquote legitimate media content websites or whatever, when I go to those places, it's not something you think about at all, unless it's like a clickbait conversation. But if Collider is going to have inconsistent titling or clunky thumbnails or whatever, I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of, if I had a brand new viewer come to my channel right here, right now for the first time,
yes,
and my videos aren't titled consistently, if the title doesn't deliver exactly what it is, if it's confusing in any way, if the thumbnail looks odd, I think about all that stuff because I don't want people to look at it and think Collider is not legitimate.
You want to be as bulletproof as possible.
I don't want, and I'm not saying they are doing this. I think this is why they should be self-conscious, but I want their content to look like a complex, not the content from the 6th grader who uploaded a video on their flip camera.
Which you're going to extremes, right? You're going to two extremes. We're not saying that's how it is.
I'm not saying that's how it is. No.
Right.
I'm just saying, but if it's inconsistent.
Move in that direction as opposed to the other. What I will say about this before anybody else gets, I don't want anybody over there to get defensive, and I don't want listeners to be like, oh, you guys are picking on it. Listen, I personally, both of us are very, very aware of things like this. For example, we had listeners tell us that they were frustrated about not putting timestamps in our own Sight and Sound podcast. For a while, I was like, you know what? You just got to deal with it. I thought about it, and the only reason I wasn't doing that is because I was being fucking lazy. Like, that's all it was. Like, I was tired. I didn't want to have to sit there and listen to every time we change topic. That's not an excuse. It's not right. Like, I'm thinking about our listeners. I want our listeners to have the best experience they possibly can. Now, I'm not just going to take every single suggestion that comes my way, but it really doesn't take that much time for me to sit down and just put them in. Or if you were to challenge me to say something like, hey man, I think we need to start adding this in card. If I'm like, man, I don't want to have to do that. That's laziness. That's me being lazy.
Right.
I need to do stuff like that. So I'm fully aware, and that's all it is it's just like a challenge. Not even like a challenge. It's just like, what can we do to be better?
I'm not accusing them of being lazy either.
No.
I just don't think that they've considered it. I think even if they wanted to say, oh, it doesn't matter, our YouTube videos are all, like, Movie Talk is branded the way that they put in the thought to brand Movie Talk in Jedi Council and Heroes from week to week for 3 years. That's what they should be doing with this podcast network. And it also matters.
It's about quality control.
It
right?
is. And it also matters on something. I'm ready to move on from this too, by the way. But it matters on the Collider Factory as well. Because not only do you have so many shows, you don't want people to get confused from week to week. What does Body Slam look like in the titling? You don't want people to get confused. And if more than one person is uploading these shows, they need to know how to properly title Collider.com podcast every time they put it up. Because if one person does .com one week and the next person does it, it could be totally different. And that's why every time I send in our show, it's not the format that I would have picked, but I picked a format that was consistent with everything else on the Movie Talk podcast feed. And that's why I word for word send in the title every week.
Sight and Sound Podcast Consulting, open for business.
I'm doing that on Friday with someone here locally.
We know. It's Flippy Joe and his brother Stan or whatever his name is.
You had a point to make about the Schmodown?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think it's super smart. I'm assuming it's Christian doing the scheduling. I think it's super smart.
It's that.
I think it's super smart that coming off of the hype of the free-for-all, it's great that they follow that up with an Inner Geekdom championship match. Like you have this huge event, and then you kind of come down, but then you hit them again with this big match, a great match. Jason Inman, obviously, who is well known around this area, but also a competitor as well, a well-known competitor, the champion. And this new guy, I forget his name. What's
Mark
his name?
Donica. It's someone they have been pushing super hard lately. He's brand new. I think this was his third total appearance, maybe. Frank could probably correct me on that. Frank Janish.
I think it was his fourth.
From fourth, okay.
Yeah, because I think his record was 3-0.
They already put him in the Lions Den. Like, they are pushing him super quick. And if you follow him on Twitter, he is so appreciative of this experience.
Yeah.
He has been very thankful. I can't remember what it was. He was at some place. It might have been like WonderCon or something like that in the past few weeks. I can't remember what it was. People were walking up to him. No, it was it WrestleMania maybe? People were walking up to him telling him that they were a fan of the Schmodown, and it sort of blew him away. Yeah. I thought that was really cool to hear. They're really, really pushing Donica.
Let me tell you what I am appreciative of this individual. I think his attire is absolutely on point. When he came out wearing that, somebody even made a joke about his jacket. That denim jacket is fire.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't know how hot it is in the studio, but that hoodie underneath, layered underneath, 100% straight fire.
I hear it's a dry heat.
I'm scared to go out there in July. That legitimately makes me fearful. But regardless, Donica Fashion, on point. Him and Finstock need to get together. In fact, Finstock, if you're listening, you're not, buy that man a Gucci bag. That would be fantastic.
I meant to bring this up last week, but I'm actually glad I didn't because I wanted to bring it up now. There have been like 2 or 3 weeks where I've watched the Schmoedown, and it's probably the longest run that I've watched the Schmoedown where I thought to myself, I could literally play this game.
Oh, yeah, you like that?
And not only could I play, I could beat some of their competitors.
I don't know.
I really do. It started with the free-for-all, and ever since then, more than ever, I have caught the Schmoedown bug, and I could compete.
All right. So
I'm serious. I want to play.
If I get one more person to tweet at me talking about how you and I should compete in the Schmoedown, I may throw my phone off of a bridge.
There is no way
I
in
have
hell.
no desire to ever compete. Listen, if I'm going to be a manager, if I'm going to be an announcer, you better bet right now that I'll be great at that. Okay? I can do it. I can.
What's the likelihood?
Bibiani, please.
What's the likelihood?
It's actually pretty good.
What's the likelihood that if you join the Schmoedown, you would automatically become the worst competitor in the entire league?
Oh, I'd do fine. I mean, I would do fine. Would I win matches? No. But would I do fine? Yes.
Like Umberto fine?
Could I beat RB3? Yes. Without a doubt.
I don't think so.
I think I could.
I don't think so.
Anyways.
RB3 beat my ass in the fan Schmoedown, and I could beat your ass in movie trivia.
Yeah, different circumstances. Different people.
He did get a ton of Kubrick questions. That was so unfair.
I'm great at Kubrick. I think, you know what? I think we should compete, you and I. Because I think I could beat you.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I don't know how we do this, but maybe we go on rundown.
We have to call take 3.
Listen. Oh, yeah. So, listen. I don't know if I'm about to break some news that I shouldn't be breaking, then you can just cut this out of the podcast. But
great. No.
Is there going to be an event that you are going to be a part of in the future? Has that been announced?
I backed out of that. They recorded that yesterday. I couldn't do it.
Why?
I was at work. They picked to record. You can announce. It was the Rundown Schmoedown. I was going to be the co-host with Skaliski, but they scheduled it on Tuesday at 9:30, and I got off work at 10:30.
Oh.
Yeah, it was also my mother's birthday. So yeah, I just couldn't do it. It didn't.
Happy birthday,
work
Ryan's
out.
mom.
I think, you know who replaced me, though? Like, think about this. Ryan Snelling was the first one on call. The person who replaced me, I believe, William Bibiani.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure Bibbs took
For some
my
reason,
seat.
I was going to say Evan DeGraff.
It's going to be,
I don't know
that's
why.
the only time Bibiani is my understudy.
Evan DeGraff would have been like, what, there's no Kanye questions? I don't know if he sounds like that or not.
I don't think he does. Okay, let's run down the main shows. Obviously, we can't talk about Jedi Council. Well, I mean, we could talk about no, we already talked about last week.
We did.
That's right. We recorded late Thursday night. So I wanted to talk about movie talk, and again, we're only talking about Monday through Wednesday. Thursday and Friday might be a different story, but it's the Skeleton Crew. Monday and Wednesday it was Ellis, Christian, and Schnepp.
Yep.
And Tuesday it was Ellis, Perry, Roca. So I'm wondering,
Where's everybody at?
Yeah, I don't know. Where's everybody at? I'm curious to see, and again, it's going to be, the timeline is wonky with this episode, but I wonder if that's going to happen on Thursday. Maybe Thursday will be all newbies, and maybe Friday will be all newbies.
I want Ace to be on Movie Talk.
He works.
I know he does.
He has a day job.
I was just throwing that out there.
What do you think of this? Do you think that they're cutting back on contract employees and maybe just keeping it to the Skeleton Crew here?
Well, no.
Well, that's what we got so far. They had a repeat of Christian and Schnepp.
Well, so?
Why is that a dumb question? I mean, it might not be the case, but why is it a dumb question?
Mark, Campia, and Christian used to be on the show 4 days a week. Like, pretty much. It's
I don't put
any stock into 1 week where they had some repeat guests.
It's not a dumb question. You could even throw in
I don't
there
think it's a dumb question,
a
but-
Mike Kalinowski or a Roxy. Throw there. But it was.
Sometimes people just aren't available. That's what I boil it down
Look,
to.
it might be different, okay, on Thursday or Friday. I'm just commenting on the week that we've got so far.
No, I mean my only take with movie talk this week was that it felt, for the first time in a while, it felt more standard. Which, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all.
Jay.
It just felt more like, yeah, this is movie talk. This is how it is. And I think a lot of content this week was overshadowed by Infinity War. I think that's like a no-brainer sort of statement. So the regular programming, it was kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about Han Solo now. I kind of don't even care because Infinity War stuff is going on. That's fine. Han Solo will have his time. But
At
yeah,
Denny's.
at Denny's, absolutely. So movie talk today, when we're recording this, it happened on Wednesday, was a particularly interesting episode for the sole fact that I don't know. I don't know if the crew that was there was just feeling a little bit lively or not, but they were having a good old time. There was some wild speculation. We got Schnepp going down deep into the Schnepp zone a few times, which was interesting.
I think I have a lot to say about Tuesday and Wednesday's show. I disagree in the fact that it felt standard because, especially Tuesday and Wednesday, I thought that they were both pretty wild and loose. Tuesday, I want to talk about with Perry and Roca, and I don't know if I brought this up last week or not. I thought it was funny. I wanted to comment on the fact that Collider or Fernandez seems to be shipping Roca and Dorian. They seem to be a great foil. You have old school versus new school, and they've just been partners. They even did that Twitch stream last week, which was fun. I watched a little bit of that.
You had Dorian and Jay Washington doing the Twitter reactions for Infinity War.
But Roca and Dorian have been shipped. Perry Nemiroff is the anti-Roca. So anytime that they have been on Movie Talk, they have really, really challenged each other, and they started going at it when it came to the Han Solo posters, the Chewbacca story. It was a fascinating conversation over one of the most dumb stories ever.
Right.
But I could not get enough of it because I thought Roca was pretty off base. And Perry spoke through me because I wanted to challenge Roca and be like, I don't think you would feel this way if this happened to a voice actor. I think Roca would stand up against that. But Perry made that exact point after I came up with that. But I kind of thought it was a little off base. Not that I care that someone disagreed with me because I was more fascinated with the drama. And it can happen, but I would love for that to happen every day on Movie Talk. But I've just noticed that lately. So I really, really have enjoyed Perry and Roca being on.
Well, that's something that we talked about a while ago on the previous show that we did. Just Movie Talk being more talk as opposed to more just quick reactions. And I think Ellis in particular has done a fantastic job at ushering that along. One thing that I've known about Ellis, or not known about Ellis, noticed about Ellis here recently, and maybe he's done this, and I'm just now coming to terms with it, but he does a great job at sort of once he's gotten I feel like he's feeling more comfortable about getting everybody's takes and then just kind of coming in like a wrecking ball and just being like, here's all of your stuff together that I've just listened to, and now here's me as the host, as he should be doing this, as the host, just like giving you my complete take on everything everybody said. And he usually... It's fascinating because he has great takes once he's wrapped everybody's debate up into this nice little bubble. Like, I've never walked away from anything Ellis has said and being like, I haven't necessarily agreed with every single take he's had, but I haven't really said like he's completely off here. And I think he's done a fantastic job because I think there was an era when he was hosting Schmoes, the live show, where he may have been passing it around too much and not giving enough of his own flavor.
Right.
But now I feel like that's completely gone. He feels more comfortable than ever doing the show the way he's doing it now.
He sandwiches the conversation.
Yes, he does.
So
yeah, I just started picking up recently that he's leading off the show and giving like a more long form take at the top.
Because, and what's interesting about that, especially when Collider was Sinead and Ashley hosting and bringing in the show, from story to story, they wouldn't go to Campia.
Right.
Campia would start the show, and then it'd be the next topic, and then Mova or Sinead would finish it with, so Christian, what do you think about
Right.
blah, 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 directing Aladdin? And a new panelist would start the discussion. It would go around, and Campia might be somewhere in the mix. Now, Ellis starts off every topic, pitches it to those two, and he might let them battle it out. It might just go to one person and then the next person, and then he'll come back around and follow up with something that they've said. And I like that a lot. That's the Chewbacca story in particular. He sort of just sandwiched it with, I just see it like he's a Muppet. And it's like when you say a movie star's Kermit the Frog and not the voice actor.
It kinda
it's like that's actually a much better way to sell it than everything Roca had just said.
I don't know who hosts Around the Horn these days, but I remember watching back when Max Kellerman was a host of it. And Movie Talk now kind of reminds me a little bit of Around the Horn without the game show aspect, without the points and kicking people off, although that would be a lot of fun. But the difference is if Ellis is the Max Kellerman, he's giving more of his take as opposed to just reacting to what people are saying.
Right.
But it does have that feeling where he's just constantly throwing these things to different people. It's just I really, really love how Movie Talk exists right now. They're doing the 3 people at the table thing. And yeah, even just thinking back to those days, not completely discounting it, but I remember it would feel like once the show came in with whoever the quote-unquote table person was to read out the news, once they would go to Campia at the very beginning, it would take forever sometimes. If there was like a big news story, it would take forever to even see who is at the table. I mean, you could get it from the wide shot, but it'd be like, damn, I just really like how it's going right now.
Yeah, I agree. Today I was more nitpicky than I've ever been, and it was really weird because
I can believe that.
I've never fact-checked the people on Movie Talk. That was something I was thinking about too when I was doing my show today.
There was some Schnepp takes. There were some Schnepp zone takes today.
So when they were covering the Alden Ehrenreich report, so Alden Ehrenreich was talking about Lord and Miller, and Christian brought up, with Christian's response, he was talking about the acting coach, and that Alden, that was a factor in the Christian's take, whereas Alden was like covering his tracks a little bit, and he brought up the acting coach. The article that they were reporting on addressed the acting coach.
Right.
And it wasn't an acting coach. It was a writer-director on the film who helped everyone. So that's part of the story was alleviated in the report, but they didn't acknowledge it. And Christian, I guess, didn't read the report or forgot, but because he used outdated information to support his claim. And so that was like the first time I was like, wait a minute, that's the first time I've corrected Movie Talk in real time.
So I see where you're coming from. I want to cast the conversation about, or at least this topic, back to some older conversations that we've had in the past, in the sense where I think we have to acknowledge that maybe not all of what was going on in that article could have been true, just throwing that out there, or maybe not everything was revealed. There might have been parts of it that were left out. And we also have to throw out this thing that we've talked about before, that it's hard to gauge what is speculation from Christian and what is inside information from Christian, because he is so close to people at Lucasfilm. Like, is he privy to knowledge that we might not know he's privy to, that he's giving out information? There's nothing wrong with this, by the way. I don't think he even, I don't think he should have to like put a marker down like, hey, just so you know, I know this, but maybe he is knowledgeable of some sort of acting coach.
Yeah, but that's not my issue. If he knows something that we don't, that's fine. But my issue is Ellis didn't say, well, the article addressed it, and then if Christian wanted to follow up with, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Then that's the discussion for Movie Talk. But it was the fact that was in the exact same article. They clearly made a point to talk about it in the article, and they didn't discuss it at all. I don't have a problem with him believing it or not. It was the fact that it went unaddressed, and he had a version of an argument that was kind of moot.
Right.
I think that was the issue. Like, if Ellis had said, wait a minute, they addressed it, and then
the article had dealt with it.
Right.
Yeah.
The article had dealt with it. So that was just one thing that I noticed. And then Ellis said that the director of Jumanji 2, Jake Kasdan, wrote Solo with Lawrence Kasdan. Wrong Kasdan. There's another Kasdan brother. Jonathan Kasdan wrote solo. So I threw it up in the chat. I was like, wrong brother. And I think he said that multiple times.
Nitpicky.
It was weird for me. I'm admitting it was weird. I've never like fact checked a movie talk before like that. But
Snelling's holding up a sign. That's what I do. I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying. It was the wrong Kasdan. He said it more than once. I did love, Christians aside, sometimes, and this isn't just Collider, it's the movie space in general, but like there are some universal takes that I hear all the time in this movie space that drive me nuts. You know how I feel about the whole Edge of Tomorrow titling? All You Need Is Kill is a terrible title, and it does not.
We get it. Okay. He's gone on this before.
I loved Christians aside on Joss Whedon. Because he said what I've been thinking for 7 years.
I agree, and this is what this is where we dove into the Schnepp zone a little bit, because
was it
not on this specific thing? We ended up going off and talking about the new Tarantino movie, the whatever that movie's called, something Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and
him basically making the statement that we absolutely are not going to see this or that, and I'm just like, man, you can't say that. Like, you can say, I don't think, but you can't just throw out that marker. I know.
Schnepp speaks. That's one of those cases where, because he speaks in absolutes.
I know that. Right. I know that, and I'm used to it. But it was when you told me. So Ryan texted me, I've got some thoughts on movie talk. I was sure that was what that was going to be. So I was just prepared.
It definitely is. I definitely wanted to talk about that because Schnepp also made it a point, and I wanted your take on it. He was talking about how the release date is sort of just a marker, and it's informative, not so much glorifying what had happened. That was something that I thought was
it was funny to watch that discussion and thinking about Clark's take on it. And we spoke so highly of her informative discussion that she had when that news story came up. It was just a very stark realization that Schnepp wasn't on that, because she made such a good point. I don't know how you can walk away from that conversation by not having your mind change. We literally saw it with everybody that was at the table.
Right.
And
maybe
that's why I feel a little bit more passionate about it.
To the point, we talked about the 3 versus 4 panelists. Perry should have been there. Like, that's an example. Well, anybody. That's an example of a show that I wish had a fourth chair.
Let me ask you a random. This is like a random thought question. People who are and aren't there. We know that a lot of people today, when we're recording this on Wednesday, a lot of people got to see Infinity War for the screenings, not the premiere, but the screenings, the press screenings. Should those people who got to see it a day later, should they be giving some sort of take somewhere, some like on Collider Official, like Dorian, for example, got to see it today? I'm not saying that they should have a YouTube video about it specifically, but should he be taking to Collider social media to get people's reactions to it to put up on the Instagram stories? Obviously spoiler free, but
I don't think they do anymore. They were. What would you think about them actively doing something on Stardust?
Absolutely.
I was going to say.
Well, they should be taking advantage of as many social media platforms as they possibly can.
I think they should have a joint.
There was a Collider Stardust, or
but I don't think they've kept up with it.
Right.
And they might have just done it because it was a endorsement.
It's more, well, yeah, and I get that, but they don't have to promote it. I mean, they don't have to promote it like in the way they were doing it for Schmoes, but
no, they would naturally still get a lot of followers just because of who they are, and they would put it on their Twitter or on. They could just promote it on their Instagram even, and it would make somewhat of a difference. Let me ask you
another random question. Random. Should there be a Collider app? That, like, sort of funnels all this stuff?
I'm going to have to think a lot about that.
Well, we've worked with an app company before that sort of provides you information for something specific that you're looking for. I mean,
it could look like that. I have ideas. I'd have to think a little bit more.
Instead of promoting, like, listen, it's Podcast One app is great and all this other stuff, but obviously there's a lot that goes into it, but I know with
Yeah.
Fernandez having a background with, this technology stuff and blockchain and this and that, whatever, I just think that instead of throwing out, go to all these places to find all these different podcasts and YouTube, if you had one app to land on all your stuff, might be beneficial.
Right. I think Slash Film a long time ago had an app, but then again, they were at the time. I think they were only a blog. I don't even know if their podcast had even come out yet.
It would essentially just be an aggregator, right?
Yeah.
You got your .com,
sure.
You got your YouTube content, your podcast content, all living on that one space.
Does Complex have an app?
I think so.
All of my creativity, my thinking space went into something I brought up last week. I think a lot they kill it on Instagram. They're putting up celebrity birthdays. What I would like to see though,
and musicians' birthdays.
Yeah,
it's hot as hell in this room.
Sorry, I'll turn a fan on when we stop.
Just turn it on now.
We're running out of time, Jay. Let me go. Yeah. I want to see more. We talked about it last week. I want to see more content promoting what's coming out. So if all of their content seems to be reactionary. This video is up on the channel now. Go check it out. Maybe post a daily schedule. So you would have to create your template and go ahead and put all the logos there so that they're there and just mix and match. And if it's a unique video, you don't even have to have a logo. You could put Infinity War review out at 9 o'clock. You could tell the fans when an embargo lifts with that schedule.
That's a great idea. In fact, because I was wanting to know that myself earlier.
So
I want Collider to be my source for all things movie information.
Every morning when I wake up, put out Movie Talk at 9 a.m., put Jedi Council at 2 or whatever it is on West Coast time. And if you're putting out another video like Now, Later, or Never or whatever, go ahead and put out a daily schedule. But it's like I said, it's important to go on and have the template. That way it can be done efficiently and done very, very quickly, and it's ready to post. I would also you would have to create a video template, maybe like a lower third bar, and you could put today on Collider. Have a candid video of Rocco walking into the studio, film it with your phone, follow it along like a tracking shot, and it could be like a behind-the-scenes shot in the studio. And he could be like, by the way, today on Collider, Movie Talk's going to be different today. Jedi Council is going to go to Denny's and blah, 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 blah. It'll be 30 seconds, and it's a video that tells you everything you need to know about the programming throughout the day.
If I'm thinking about content that can be done on social media, it's all of that other stuff, right? There should be a show on Collider's Facebook or Instagram that is today on Collider, whatever it's going to be. And it covers everything. Covers YouTube, podcast, whatever.
We'll talk about it next week. We'll look at Collider's presence on Facebook, because if they haven't uploaded Now, Later, or Never on Facebook, I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But we need to look that up. I'll make it quick because we do have a couple more things to talk about. The new graphics package dropped on Heroes.
Yep.
It looks great.
Yep.
I expected greatness and I got greatness. Everybody seems to be talking.
Shout out to Brian Wart.
Exactly. Everybody seems to be behaving when it comes to the Fox Disney deal a little bit. There are still some wild things that get thrown out, even though I think there's concreteness. I listened to a podcast. I'm not going to name who it was.
From now on, every week, can we put somebody
on blast?
Can we put people in Fox Disney timeout? Like if somebody just goes into the Twilight Zone with it, we can be like, I'm just using it as an example. Dennis, you're in Fox Disney timeout.
I listened to a podcast. I'm not going to name who it was. It wasn't on Collider. I will say it was not a Collider thing.
Was it our own?
No. I listened to a podcast where someone speculated, and this is someone in this space, mind you. Someone speculated, I think Avengers 4 is actually Avengers vs. X-Men. And I literally, I had something in my hand, and I threw it across the room.
Yeah.
I was so mad. It was not on Collider, but it was in Geek Fandom, and I was so God, it drove me nuts. But they are getting better at it. And then Jedi Council at Denny's, which on the surface just makes me laugh because it's such an absurd sentence. But I was thinking a lot about sort of how we got to that point. Jedi Council's relationship with Lucasfilm for them to be able to do something like this. Crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity. I think these are the types of things that we look at from a business standpoint, from a financial standpoint, that are just really key things to go down for Collider as a business. And this is also a good marker. It's a good proof of concept, if you will, for other people to get involved. Hey, if you want to get involved with us, look at what you can possibly do. There is so much to be done with advertising in this space. We've seen it with our own eyes with Stardust. You could make an argument that Stardust's rise to fame is almost completely down to their early partnership with the Schmoes No Live show.
Right.
I do not think they would be where they are today with so many people readily using the service if it was not for that partnership.
Yes.
And I just think I think it's a beneficial spot.
It makes me think a lot about how Lucasfilm views Jedi Council, and it's kind of like our relationship in a way. How, we comment and we keep Collider healthy in a way, and maybe Jedi Council serves that same purpose at Lucasfilm. It also makes me laugh because every time Christian has someone in the Star Wars universe on as a guest, he tries to recruit them to his side of the fence. Like, Filoni should be lead creative.
Yeah.
Everyone in canon, he's trying to recruit for that point. I think it's hilarious. But it's a funny. I like what that means for Jedi Council, the fact that they have that relationship and can do things like that.
The last thing that I want to throw out there, and I think it's in your rundown, is this Kevin Pollak podcast with Mark and Christian that were on there. It was hosted by Sam Levine. I guess Kevin Pollak was out of town at the time. If you are ever interested in just a crash course about Mark and Christian, the Schmoes, and where they came from, this is such a fantastic interview. They don't get the opportunity to get interviewed by people a lot. I need to correct them, I think. I was surprised they didn't throw out the fact that they used to be, I mean, it maybe wasn't a straight up interview, but they used to be on, what's the radio show that Christian still does?
Heidi and Frank.
Heidi and Frank.
They did mention that.
They did mention that. They were also on Ari Shaffir's Skeptic Tank back in the day. They did like a Oscars preview, I think. But this is a crash course into the Schmoes, into Mark and Christian. If you've ever wondered their trajectory, they discuss the Schmoedown stuff. One of my favorite things about this was when Sam Levine was talking about doing research on them. I think it's hilarious that he might have had to listen to Don't Be a Beardo to get more context.
Oh, God.
But, I mean, even something like potentially even your old Film Beef episode, maybe.
Oh, God.
Like, there's just not a lot out there. But it
Beard-
was a fantastic episode, a fantastic discussion. Wish it was a little bit longer.
Beardo did a way better job than I did, that's for sure.
It's what's hilarious about their story. This is the last thing I'll comment about, and then we can wrap it up or whatever. But I think it's funny how I listen to a ton of conversations like this, like in podcast form, where they're talking about people's stories, how they got from point A to point B. It's so difficult to get them in a room, even for as long as they were in there, and even begin to scratch the surface. Like, they do so much. They put out so much content. They're so prolific in being on the internet and all the connections that they've made that it's hard to even get a full grasp within an hour to an hour and a half to a 2-hour conversation,
Right.
just what they've accomplished. But again, it is a crash course episode, and I think it's great.
It's funny how every time I hear a version of how they came to be, it's a different version. And not
I'm always learning things. For sure.
Yeah, it's not that they're changing things. I just think it's every time they're adding in something that they forgot before. And it's such a, like, when Christian explains the things that he's done in his lifetime, sometimes I wonder, how did you fit all of that in with your life?
Right.
Because I've been watching you for several years, and you weren't doing any of that. Sometimes it feels like he's crammed a lifetime into like a decade.
Right.
And so it's I like listening to every single interview that they do like this, because it might be about the cliche, the origin, the start, or whatever, but there's always new information. I also think it's funny when Christian and Mark, it's even funny on the live show or on Movie Talk. It's like anytime they learn new information about each other, I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Because I wonder.
They're like legitimately surprised by things.
Like when Christian, I can't remember what it specifically was, but when Christian's like, "Oh, really? You lived in South Carolina?" It's like, I knew that.
Yeah.
It's just funny. And Christian sounded like us when we are frustrated when explaining Collider. Like, you know, you and I have talked about, like, when we want to talk about Collider to other people, we don't know exactly where to start. Like, oh, it's an entertainment blog, or it's a YouTube video, or it's the Schmodown. You don't know really where to begin. Christian sounded like that on this episode because it was so sporadic, and he was trying to explain what Collider was and Schmoes and all that. And even though I knew what it was, it sounded confusing.
Well, it makes you realize, I think, just how deep inside the bubble stuff like this is.
Yeah.
And how hard it can be. They do a great job, but it can be difficult for new people to just really, really buy into this.
Right. I'd be curious to know how it translated for all of Kevin Pollak's listenership.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to take yourself out of the equation and sort of view it in that regard.
Kevin Pollak also did a second interview with Larry David. I was a big fan of that first one. So I gotta have to watch the.
Sounds good. Where can they find you online?
Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. We are going to recap the latest episode of Legion on the Sight and Sound podcast feed. If you are watching Legion, come over to Sight and Sound's YouTube channel or podcast feed. Listen to our recap. We're doing it all season long. We've been doing it all season. Definitely check that out. And I just put up a movie episode. It's just me talking about my experience with the MCU over the years. It's just sort of a memoir. And I go movie by movie. Sight and Sound is where you want to be if you want to support myself and Jay.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jaye Williams, J-A-Y-E. It's the same for both. You can also check out my music show, my music podcast that I do every single Friday on Sight and Sound. We're we're breaking down, giving my first reactions and impressions to the week's biggest new releases. Also, if you're not following along with this Kanye West and Drake stuff that's going on, they're both dropping albums in June. We've got so much coverage leading up to that gigantic music event that you might be sick of it already. I have no idea. But also subscribe to the Sight and Sound YouTube channel where I am dropping my album reviews in full force. If you don't have a music outlet, let Sight and Sound be your music outlet. That's all I've got, my friend.
All right, I'll see you.
My pamplemousse has gone flat. 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 Pamplemousse has gone flat.